Oh yes, the summer is here. Finally, relaxing on the beach, enjoying a white claw, doing everything you like, festivals, watching movies, watching YouTube videos. Which brings me back to my studio, my way too hot studio, because you decided to check out a tutorial from Franky, Chime and Dr. P. So let's dive into it. No, but seriously though, I'm happy you're watching. And before we dive into the details of the song, I want to talk you through the idea and like how the song came together. So at first we got a booking. So Chime, Dr. P and myself back to back on a festival in Hungary. And it was like 3 weeks or like 4 weeks in advance when we got the booking. And I thought by myself, like, you know, what could be cool if we make a song with the three of us, so we can have that as an opener. And in general, well, we all have kind of the same audience, so it's basically a no-brainer to just make a record and finish it. Plus, it's actually a good thing, I think, because since you have this like time span of like 3 or 4 weeks where you have to get the record done, there's a bit of a push to it. And I feel with most collabs, it will take forever, you know. I sent them a little ID. So very simple, riff-based, melodic. So I sent that to the guys, and then I asked the guys like, yo, can you please put your own sound into there? Like, this is clearly my own signature sound, so I want their like signature sounds in there as well. Especially since we had a short time frame on finishing the record. So I sent it to them, and they were working on some basses for the drop, and then meanwhile I started on the intro. So since that main sound that I built is very like riff-based, melodic-y and stuff, I thought it's cool to go for like a deep house style intro, but make it dubstep, you know, so I came up with this. This is just a organ thing in Spire. Then I added some keys. Then the usual, added some claps, some percussion stuff, some deep house vocals, some effects and stuff, and some rises. And then we go into the build-up. This is also a combination of like samples and like drums matched together and chopped together, so I got a pre-drop thing. Then once we had the intro done, we needed a little bit of a vocal, in which case we didn't want to go for a specific splice sample like straight out the way. So I asked my friend Katie Sky if she could record something. She recorded a whole verse. Today is the day, tonight is the night. I'm feeling so good, I'm feeling so right. So I sent that to the guys. I personally really like that one, but they wanted to go for a bit more of a sampled style, so it's more like the deep house sound, you know, because we're going for that in the intro. So in that case, I chopped up the vocal that she had already, like chopped it, pitched it, used formants and stuff, and then just picked parts that I liked already. Feeling so good, feeling so good. And then to make a whole phrase, I looked on Splice and looked for samples that matches her lyrics and sound and style and key. And then I chopped those together, and then I got something like this. So as you can see, like the top vocals, those are from Katie, and all the other ones are like samples that I matched and like chopped in there. And also I like flex pitched this, so I moved some notes to make it a bit more sense, because the chop was nice in the way of the position, but I didn't like the key structure of it. So that's the vocal, and then it goes into the drop. So from this part on I had to wait on Dr. P and Chime, in which they're gonna drop their sounds, and you're gonna see that now.
What's up, it's Chime. Here's how I made a bunch of bass sounds from Feel It with Dr. P and Franky Nuts. You join me in the project for the beta version of the track, complete with Big Boss rip-off first drop. And hard techno third drop. This is the project where I first originally made a lot of the basses, so let's just dive right in, guys. First up, let's look at this main sort of like initial yonk sound that happens. So this is a Vital preset, and this is actually one from one of my Vital preset packs, and it showcases what I like to do a lot, which is dragging in one of my already pre-made basses and just completely converting it into a new sound. So let me find the original version of this bass. Looks like it's this one from Melodic Rhythm Volume 2. So obviously very different to how the sound ends up coming out over here. So here's the patch with all of the filters taken off and the effects, and we're left with this. The reason why I like using a pre-made bass as a wavetable, it means that you can very easily get a brand new starting point that then is processed by everything else, and it means that making variations on your bass sound, once you've sculpted everything else out with the filters and the effects, you can just tweak this and then it spits out a new variation. That's a very nice thing for me. I'm a big fan of happy accidents and just like tweaking little tiny things, and then it goes through everything else and becomes something delicious, basically of its own volition. So that's the starting point we have. And a lot of the shape of that is that we have this initial LFO controlling the wavetable position, and then we have LFO2 controlling the pitch, and it's sweeping very quickly up and then down to create that squelch at the beginning of the sound. LFO3 is mainly controlling the filters, so let's talk about those. This is just more shaping, really. A lot of my sound design process is just pissing about and seeing what happens. I'm not great at going, I want to make this exact specific sound, so I'm going to sit down and make it. It's mostly pissing about with me. This is what provides a lot of the bass weight, is this basic shapes wavetable, which is actually on the square position, but we have a low pass on here, which is kind of transitioning it from a sine to a square, so it brings in more harmonics alongside this LFO position. And then the harmonics are dulled by the fact that it goes through this filter too. So that's the main sound together, and then it's really all the usual gang in terms of effects on top of that. So distortion, we have a hard clip, and that's being pushed higher for the LFO. That's what gives it a lot of its character, and then it's really this filter that then calms things down. We've got a chorus, which is basically acting as a dimension expander would. I'm surprised I haven't ramped off the low end, but I must have liked it that way. Then this low pass filter is really what's making everything a little bit more controlled. It looks like I've also messed around with it swapping between being a low pass and a high pass filter just to get the sort of shape that I want, and then you've got OTT on the end. And so to demonstrate what I mean about tweaking the wavetable to get different sounds out of it, here we go. Yeah, you can get just slightly different variations on that, and then kind of once you've got this set up here, you can just drag any old thing into this. To just kind of subtly change the variation in it if you want to use the bass multiple times throughout a track. And that's what I end up doing in this little section here. That's just me using different instances of the same patch, but I am changing the wavetable position and the LFO shape to get more out of that patch. So let's move on to what sits in between that little bit there, which is this flowery wob thing, which sounds like this. So taking off all the effects and going into the sampler here, this is another reuse of pre-made bass sound. That's how it sounds in the sampler. Literally just, I've put it in the sampler so I can cut it a little bit and mess around with where I want it to start. And a classic way, especially with color-based sounds, of creating more new variations is doing this technique where you have a frequency shifter changing the entire tone of the sound, for example, and then throwing that into chroma to get the harmony back into place that was originally part of that sound. And it's the sort of thing where you can carefully tweak the exact point that the frequency shifter is at in order to make certain tones in chroma more or less prominent. And then also on there we have a freeform phase from Melder. This is basically doing the job of a disperser but on steroids. I have this in bubble mode effectively by using this curve. And then we have denoiser, which is just attenuating kind of like you would just with like a low pass filter. It's just attenuating the fizz at the top there. So it's kind of a more sunken sound so that I can blast it with 45% OTT to have it feel chunky but not have it feel crispy, if that makes sense. I want it to be more bubbly. And then to even further get some of that bubbliness out, I've got like this speed up thing. This is like a tape stop, but at the start, so a tape start, which is going to produce a lot more low end and a lot more of like a swipey vibe to it as it speeds up into the original sample. And then we've got a classic like reverse reverb tail on that. Just allows that sound to fill out that exact gap that we want up until the next snare. And I believe there may be a variation over here. That complete section sounds like this. There you go. What else is cool that I made? Yeah, so on the second drop, I'm doing kind of an impression of the Franky Nuts bass, but I made my own version, which is this. As you can see here, I went through a couple of different variations of that before I landed on the final sound. This is what the final sound sounds like on its own. And this is a lovely Axel Boy Patreon preset. I find his presets really handy to just get a baseline, not baseline, but baseline for generally where I want a sound to be, and then I can carry it to the point. I'm a lot better at working off stuff that is already in existence. It's why I do a lot of collabs, because I feel like I can bounce off ideas better than I can just generate original ones. And the same sort of thing applies to like patches and stuff like that, and why I bounce off my own work with like the bass one-shots to make new stuff. I just find it easier to sort of leapfrog in that sense. But you can see I tried a bunch of different patches out from the Axel Boy Patreon before landing on the one that I wanted to use. Yeah, and you can see here that I put a very, very quick portamento glide time here on mono and legato, so I could do these little twiddly bits where the notes suddenly kind of do a bit of a vibrato effect, but with a lot more control, because I'm able to control it with the MIDI here. So then that in audio here. I then back this up with individual reverb tails. You can see how I've cut up each of the individual notes that I want to have its own reverb tail, and then exported that and had them fade in so that I don't have each of the reverb tails of different notes spilling over each other. It just means I can fill up the space, but I'm not muddying up what the melody is actually doing. And here's the reverb on its own. And over here we have basically the exact same thing, but an octave above. And this little wob, as you can see from the name, is derived from the duckstep bass. Just a little ducky wobby thing. Let's see if I can find where that is. Yep, there it is. Yep, this is just reusing the Temanite duckstep bass, kind of recontextualizing it and using it in a much more subdued sense than a full quack. But yeah, in terms of basses, those are my main additions to the tune, I would say. Hopefully this has been useful, and I'll see you later. Bye.
By the way, we're midway through the video, so I want to ask you one thing. You don't need to, but if you can, give me a sub, give me a like. It helps tremendously. Once again, you don't have to, but it helps me a lot. So if you love my music, if you want to support me, consider giving me a sub and a thumbs up. Back to the video.
Hello. This is Dr. P, and I am going to give you my little tutorial on the sounds that I made in Feel It with Franky Nuts and Chime. So this is the little section that I'm going to show you today. Sounds like this. So I'll give you a little quick rundown. It's basically 2 layers. So I'll show you what they're both doing. This is layer 1. And this is layer 2. And both sounds are almost identical. So I'll show you the differences. Let's just take everything off quickly. So basically the crux of this sound is it's essentially 2 sine waves. This one is down an octave, sounds like this. So then you got a low octave and a high octave sine wave, 4 octaves apart. And all you do to get the classic sound, whack a tube drive on it, drive all the way up. And I've got hyperdimension on this as well. And you can give it a little bit of extra character with a filter. So position of the filter. And obviously the shape as well. So this one I had like this. There's a bit of post-processing on it as well. OTT, an EQ, a wave shaper, which isn't doing too much, a little bit of saturation, and a Saturn. The Saturn's doing quite a lot. So this is without the Saturn, and this is with. Really adds a lot of like toughness to the sound. You can really shape the grit with that. So that's one of the layers, and the second layer is very, very similar. I'll take these off and this. So let's take these off it. Same octaves, although this one is -1 and this one is +2. And they're not just sine waves, they're BD sines, which makes them slightly more complex harmonically. So it's the same old story, LFO. Oh no, this is being controlled by an envelope. And the old hyperdimension distortion. And this one's got an EQ on it as well. So let's see what the post-processing is doing on this. Another OTT. Another EQ. Another wave shaper doing the same. Oh, and a reverb as well. And then another little EQ cut. So the 2 sounds combined gives you the absolute classic Dr. P screechy lead. This one down here is effectively exactly the same with like a slightly different envelope on it. So that's it.
Then I want to go a little bit in depth on how I made my melodic bass. So it's basically a sub with some pitch bend going on. Like this is a quick pitch bend on 132, and then it's just tiny bits of distortion, like a little bit of saturation. This is like just that when you open it blank and you just squeeze it up a little bit. Some soothe to get rid of like the very low stuff. OTT on this specific sub. I don't usually do OTT on it, but I wanted to get a bit of that crunch out. And I think later on, because I made this in a separate project, I removed the bass again and then just put a single sine wave in there. So this sub is more for the character, you know, to get like that high buzzy crunch to the sound. Then I got another sub, which is just a crunch sub, basically, which is kind of the same. Oh, it does have some like phasing stuff, but this is just the character. You don't really need that. But okay, let me show you with all the effects. And then without. So as you can see, I got some noise and I got some oscillator. It doesn't really matter which one you use, but like preferably some sine-ish wave with some upper harmonics, and then like a phaser or something to like get a bit of a character. Here it's clipping, like soft clip distortion, and then OTT to get the noise out, and then over here it's just like distorting tiny bits, like not do one plugin with a lot of distortion, but use multiple plugins with small amount of distortion that will grant you a more complex and better sounding sound. So Thrash, Saturn, then this thing is just limiting it again. Then it goes into Wave Shaper, which is like shaping wave. Then it goes back into a limiter, and then again wave shaping. This is basically a technique that they use for hardstyle kicks, like wave shaping, limit, wave shaping, limit. Then I have this sound, which is basically, I just looked up on the tutorial how to make the dash star sound from Knock 2. You can find that anywhere, so I don't mind to like fully explain this, but it's very simple. It's a saw with a +4 semitones, sine wave with a +7, and then it's just synced up to get like that character. You need a little bit of an LFO to get that steppy sound with a filter. Nothing really special. And then over here, this is just distortion and multiband compression. Sample hold gives a little bit of that like Game Boy effect to it, and then some whiteness. And then I have this sound. This is a sound that I made myself. It has this wavetable. You can find that in digitals. I think the thirds is just basically adding another octave in harmonics. So you can scroll between the two and find your sweet spot for the amount of harmonics that you want for your sound. Just to give you an example, this is with 2, this with 3, which suits here because the lower bass I will get out of this sound, the Franky dog. So keep that in mind when you're stacking sounds. Not every sound has to have like a really aggressive low end. This sub is mainly also, I think, for more harmonics. So this is just adding harmonics. This is more like a donker, so like a deep house donk with like a lot of stab to it. It uses misfits, wave positions all the way up. And it has a sine wave, and then the balance between the two of them, that's like the key. You have to like figure that out a little bit. And as you can see, I try to like get a bit of an attack, but not like too much, because I like the sustain of it, the tail. I added some more highs, some distortions, some ODT, and then again, this is just mainly cleaning up. Like most of the processing on its own is just like cleaning up low ends, OTT again to get the noise out, a little bit more of distortion, limiting, wave shaping, limiting again, and then all of these sounds I sent into a group to make sure they're getting into soothe again. So let's put them all on. And as you can see, it will remove quite a lot on the 3, 4, 5K, because that's doing a lot. When you stack sounds, this area is gonna get over accentuated and that will hurt your ears. So Last thing I want to show you is the vocals that I had on the second drop, which is this.
Can you feel it when we kick you with the bass?
So basically that's just me singing that.
Can you feel it when we kick you with the
The bass! Right. And then I had an AI model on it.
Can you feel it when we kick you with the bass?
Just to have a different texture of the vocal as well. So because I wanted multiple vocals to get it more powerful. Then that edited.
Can you feel it when we kick you?
That's my original vocal, and then this one edited as well.
Can you feel it when?
And this has like a frequency shifter on there. So without,
Can you feel it when we kick?
with,
Can you feel it when?
and then all of them together you get this.
Can you feel it when we?
And then basically what I did is I pitched all of that stuff down with like Manipulator or like Little Alto Boy. You kind of have to find the sweet spot for which plugin works best.
Can you feel it when we kick you with the bass? Can you feel it when we kick you with the bass? Can you feel it when we?
It was something like that. So I hope you learned something. Shout out to Chime, shout out to Dr. P. I hope you liked the record. I hope you learned some stuff in the video. And if you have some questions, let me know. I also started a Discord, so you can ask me a lot of questions there. And maybe if you have some cool questions, I can start new videos from that. So definitely join me on Discord and I can make any type of video that you guys want. So let me know and see you in the next video. Peace.